everyone, my name's Gia. Thank you so much for tuning in today and welcome to my channel. On this channel we talk about things like minimalism, frugal living, simple living and cost cutting. All those good things that we need to be able to survive and thrive in today's environment basically. Today's video is a follow-up video of one that I've done a few months ago about cost cutting and how to save money where you can. So different tips and tricks that I found really help me and hopefully will help you too. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first tip I want to share with you today is ditch the credit cards. Now I know for a lot of people this sounds like an impossible feat, but it's really not. You're going to save yourself so much heartache and so much potential debt if you just get rid of the issue to begin with. So for me personally, I have never owned a credit card. I have my debit card and that is it. If I can't afford something outright, I'm not going to buy it. I will keep saving for it and, you know, if I still want it, then I'll buy it when I have the money for it. But putting myself into unnecessary debt has just never appealed to me, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't appeal to you either. So if you do have credit cards and it is possible to pay it off as quickly as possible, just get rid of them once you can do that. Just have your debit card and just pay for what you can afford then and there. Don't go into debt over something. The next tip I want to share is buy used. Obviously this doesn't apply for everything, like don't buy used toothbrushes or whatever, but things like secondhand clothes, even secondhand cars, things where you don't necessarily need a brand new item and you can have it for the fraction of the cost. Like, it's always a good idea. I very rarely buy new clothes. I usually buy secondhand. Sometimes friends will be giving stuff away, that sort of a thing. But I've never, like, even just going into like a retail store and seeing like a full price item of clothing. Even when I was little, because my mum was very frugal, so I've had that upbringing my whole life. I just remember going into shops and being like, oh my god, people are paying $150 for one item of clothing. Like, I could not wrap my head around it. I still can't. So buy secondhand where you can with things, because you're going to save so much money in the long run, and yeah, it's a good idea. My third tip is start trying to grow fresh herbs and vegetables. Now this can sound very daunting. This is my first year growing, or attempting to grow, a mini garden in my backyard. I have had no experience growing any kind of vegetable. I've got some houseplants and they seem to be doing okay. I've had them for a few years. But actually growing food for myself, never done that before. So it's been a learning curve, but I feel like the knowledge that you are going to gain and the expertise, like you're going to screw up. Like you're going to screw up at some point, you're going to learn something and you're just going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. But to have that knowledge about growing your own food, a fresh source of, you know, nutrition in your backyard where you don't have to pay for food, like that's the ideal situation, isn't it? So I find even just attempt before, you know, shit hits the fan basically. If we're going that way, you want to be prepared. And if you have the know-how to grow, you know, even just certain vegetables or something, you may be really good at growing tomatoes or something, maybe not so good at growing zucchinis, who knows? But trial and error, I guess, and just having that experience and know-how and knowledge along the way, I think is really going to set you up for, and myself as well, because I'm still learning, for possibilities that might happen in the future. And it's just, yeah, it's a good money-saving hack. Even herbs. Herbs are so easy to grow. Like, it's pretty hard to stuff up herbs. So even just starting small and then working away from there, just getting the foot in the door is a really good idea. My fourth tip is make your own coffee at home. Now I know that going out and having a coffee can be one of life's little joys and really enjoyable. You know, you just go out, have a coffee by yourself or with friends, and it's just a nice thing to do. But it can add up depending on how much coffee you drink, how much coffee you go out and buy. So whatever is the most enjoyable and practical way for you to make coffee, it's just better to bring your own from home if you're going somewhere. Start the morning off with a fresh coffee that you've made, and the process is like really amazing. I love the process of making coffee in the morning. Like, my day doesn't start right unless I make that first cup of coffee. So just getting into the habit and making it a ritual can be a really, really nice thing to do. And you save money in the long run. So just don't buy as many coffees out. Try to limit. My next tip is to go on a short-term spending freeze. Not a spending spree, a spending freeze. And what this essentially means is try to go certain days in the week without spending anything. I'm serious. Like, just leave your bank account, leave your debit card, your credit card, whatever at home, and just don't spend anything for even just a few days. It really does add up. I do this quite frequently. I try to limit when money is going out of my account at all costs. I like to know exactly where it's going. So if you can, just control that impulse to spend the money, just try to save it instead. Rechannel the energy. And the feeling you get from hanging on to the money, in my opinion, is better than spending the money. Take shopping apps off your phone. Now, this is interesting one for me to say because I do have an online clothing secondhand business that I do. So for me to delete that would be a little bit counterproductive since I do make income from that. But on the flip side, if you are using these apps and these platforms to purchase things like clothing, goods, electronics, this sort of thing, just on impulse, and the temptation to just click that app and activate it and go into it, if this is you, maybe consider taking those apps from your phone, even for a couple of weeks, and just see how you feel and how much money you have saved in that time period. You might be surprised. You might not be, but you might be. So if you are somebody who is prone to impulse spending, taking the temptation away can be very, very useful. Another tip is, wherever you go, compare prices. This includes grocery shopping, clothing shopping, basically any kind of shopping. If you see an item, see if you can find it somewhere else for cheaper. Like, just compare prices within stores or even online if that is how you prefer to do your shopping. If it is an item you really need, see if you can find it for the best deal possible. Cancel your unused subscriptions, whether this is a Netflix subscription, magazine subscriptions, anything like that. Things you are not using, or even things you are using but you are considering how much use am I actually getting out of this. Or even finding a cheaper plan where you are. Like, I know for me personally, I didn't have Netflix myself, but when my current housemate moved in, we decided, alright, let's splurge on Netflix and find the cheapest plan Netflix has, which I think it's $11 or something for like a slightly lower picture quality, which you can't really even tell it's any different, and split that 2 ways. So it ended up being like, was it $5 something each for the month, which was halving the cost. We found the cheaper option for it, and we are currently getting use out of it. We may deactivate it, who knows, but if you can find ways to halve your costs on subscriptions or just completely just get rid of them entirely if you're not using them, also a great thing to do. Now, depending on your living situation, to cut costs, it can be an extreme form of doing it for some people, and also depending on your age and where you are in life, but having a housemate or just somebody you co-live with can save so much on bills, power, that sort of a thing, because everything is halved or thirds or fourth, you know what I mean? So it's a consideration if you live in more than, I guess, a 1-bedroom place, then the option of getting a housemate can definitely halve costs. And also depending on where you are in your life, if it's viable for you, definitely things to consider. Now, when you're shopping, it can be very easy to just chuck everything in the fridge. But you know that thing where you bought the food, you kind of forget about the food, it's just sitting in the fridge, it's at the back of it, and it starts to go mouldy, it starts to go off, and you've just completely forgot it's even there. Something I like to do is to freeze it. Like, most things can be frozen. Check if there's a preparation you got to do to freeze, like certain vegetables or something like that, but freezing things just prolongs their life so much and it limits the amount of food waste that you have. So you're saving money, you still got food there, and it lasts a lot longer. Another tip is to dress for the weather and the temperature. Now, I live in quite a cold climate for Australia, and for me, it just pays to rug up more. Like, put on an extra jacket, have more blankets around the house, this sort of a thing, rather than going straight for the heater and just cranking that up. Because, yeah, the amount of power, like the price of power has just gone through the roof. So just throwing on an extra layer, live in a hot climate, take off an extra layer, just, you know, save money where you can on power. It's just one expense that doesn't need to be as high as it is. And we are creatures of comfort, and it is easy to just switch on a button and be instantly cool or hot. But just, yeah, clothing choices and stuff like this can just save so much on your power bills. Now, when you do your washing, it just pays to wash in cold water for most things. Like, I know some things, unless something is incredibly dirty or something and it needs to be washed in hot water, most things are just fine to go in a cold wash. Like, they really are. I've never had any issues with it at all, and you're saving money, again, on power and energy costs because you're using the cold rather than the hot. And also that ties into that is run full loads. Like, don't just throw a handful of stuff in the washing machine, call it a day. I try, of course it depends on how many people live with you, how big your family is, this sort of a thing. But for me, I try to do one load of washing a week. I try to get all my clothes together and then just do one big load and call it a day, basically. And I found, I was constantly told, like, don't mix the colours, and I've never ever had a problem. I've always mixed the colours and, like, my lighter clothing, and I have never had any issues with, like, bleeding into different colours. I don't know if that's just, like, an older washing machine thing that was an issue back in the day or something, but yeah, I've never had an accident or a mishap with that, so maybe I'm lucky, I don't know, but for me that's never been an issue. So just doing the one load a week, yeah, saves water costs and power costs. Now, we all know how important exercise and physical activity is for our health, but gym memberships, like, how many people have gym memberships and never actually use them? They just kind of hang on to them, and, you know, for a rainy day, like, I will go to the gym. Like, I have so many friends who've got their gym memberships and go to the gym maybe once or twice, and they're just continuously paying for this service that they're not using. Like, unless you are using this service a lot, you know, and you're actually getting your money's worth for going to the gym, just work out at home, honestly. Like, it's so easy to just get some even cheap equipment. Like, I found, like, even like a skipping rope or something like that for cardio. How much is a skipping rope? Like $5 or something super cheap. Like, just go for a walk or something, go for a run, go for a jog. Like, you don't need to be spending money to exert physical, like, activity. Like, I don't get that. That just kind of seems like a lot of money down the drain, unless you are specifically needing an item of equipment that they have and it is cheaper actually for you to go to the gym than to outright purchase that item that you are using, or you are a gym buff at heart, a gym junkie, and is something you genuinely enjoy doing. For most of us, I think we can suffice pretty well with doing our physical activities and stuff like that at home. I really do. So even just walking around, just walk around the block a few times, go for a run, just as long as you are getting in your daily exercise and things like that. One thing that is going to work for some people and not at all for others is think about modes of transport. Like, for me personally, I have never had a car. I do not drive. I do not have my license. I had my license briefly when I was a teenager, and then I just let it run out because I just wasn't using it. I don't like driving, that's just me. And I live in a place where everything is accessible by public transport. So for me, if I need to get somewhere, I will tend to bus places, which is like $1 something a trip. So it's like super cheap. And I save so much by not having a car. Like, I just remember hearing everyone talking about how much they're spending on their car for repairs, for registration, for petrol, and the costs, I just can't understand. That's just me. Like, depends where you live. Like, this is totally situational, and I don't know your life or, yeah. But for me personally, and it is possible if you live in an area where everything is super close, you don't really go on long trips that often, it's something to consider, because you can save a lot of money by not having a car and then just using public transport when you do need to go places. About 90% of the time, it's worked very, very well for me. It's only, maybe that 10% margin where I'm like, God, I'd be useful to have a car right now. Like, if I need to transport something, or if I'm moving house or something like that. But apart from that, majority of the time, I've had no need for a vehicle, my own personal vehicle. So something to consider. Another tip is when you create a shopping list, whether that be physically going into the shop or ordering food online. Create that list and stick to it. Don't, and this is a lot easier to do, I found, from, like, I get my shopping delivered most of the time. Sometimes I'll go out and purchase something if I'm out and the other shop doesn't have it, but staying consistent to that shopping list you've got there and only buying the things that you actually came out intending to buy. Something else that saves money is drink water over fizzy drinks, juices, that sort of thing. Water is free. I have a water purifier and that is paid for itself in spades over the years. Depending on where you live too and what the water quality is like. Like, luckily the water where I live is pretty good, but I was still like, well, I still want a water purifier just to get rid of any potential other nasties that may be in it. So yeah, get a water filter, filter your own water. If you're like me and you do like juices every now and again, I've always, this has again been a family thing that I was raised up with, was a special treat at the end of the night after dinner. We could have 1 cup of juice a day, and that was something we all looked forward to. It sounds silly, but it was something we really, really enjoyed, and I've continued that into adulthood. So I'll buy a 2-litre container of juice a week, and that is to last me for the entire week. If I go over it, then too bad, the juice is done. So it's just, yeah, I'll have half a glass of juice before bed after dinner, and the rest of the time I just drink water. And better for you, free, you can't complain really, so yeah. And the last tip I have, especially coming into the festive season, with Christmas only a few days away, is make your own gifts and even your own products. Like, you don't need to spend money to show somebody you love them or appreciate them. Sometimes the most thoughtful gifts are stuff we've made ourselves. We put time and energy into making it for someone we care about. I know that for me personally, like, I've had family members do me paintings for Christmas that they've done. And I treasure those, like, they're displayed and I really love them. They mean something to me. Or they've cooked me a meal or something that I really enjoy, and like, that is so thoughtful. Like, that to me is worth more than somebody going out buying something from a shop. It's yeah, it really is the thought that counts with things. And also for things like cleaning products, that sort of a thing, try making your own. Like, it can be cheaper, like, unless you find a good special on cleaning products or something like that. Just some simple white vinegar, bicarb, lemon juice, that sort of a thing can clean pretty much everything in your house, and it's cheap. Those are some tips and tricks that I implement in my own life, and hopefully you have learnt something from this as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. Okay, bye!